Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Diplomacy Timing Window, where the rules are discussed and our opinions don't matter. My name is The Half-Heard.
I'm Kazadoom.
And I'm Hungry Hippos.
So, building from our last episode, where we spoke about some of the recent updates, specifically the changes to timing windows and the addition of auto pass features, I thought maybe let's focus on some quality of life improvements that we want to see. What do you guys think?
I like quality of life. It is important.
Yeah. Components and like game mechanics and stuff like that, while very sexy, I think there's definitely room for improvement for things like UI and just flow and just being able in general to access information is just super important from a game experience, right? So I think
Absolutely,
the app
yeah.
does a lot of things pretty well, but I think there's definitely some room that it can do things even better. And that's, I think, what we're going to talk about here. And
Even
we'll
one
see.
thing that I want to say before we start here is, for me, comparing TI Wars to game at the table, even though I haven't played in a long time, I still feel that the information is way more accessible in TI Wars than it is at the table.
Yeah.
Like seeing what techs everybody has, what planets everybody has,
Oh,
is
tell me
just
about
so hard at the table, and TI Wars makes it easier than like looking across the table and trying to figure out what card it is without actually asking that person if that is light weave, for
Yeah.
instance. So
Yeah, well, because that's right. In real life, like all of those cards and components, like it takes up so much real estate. So I feel that, and I agree. Like I think one of my favorite parts of the UI is the game info tab. It's just like everything is there, almost everything anyways.
not everything. That's why we
But
have this episode.
a lot is there. But yes, that's what we were gonna say, is it does a lot of stuff great, and we'll
Just could
touch
be
on a
better.
couple things that would make it even better.
The game info
Yes.
tab is simultaneously the bane of my existence in that when I see other factions have a text that I don't want them to have, it's not good. And it's also the greatest thing ever because I can see everything that everyone has. And some of those times they don't have what they need.
I suppose who said ignorance is bliss? I suppose that applies at times.
Yes.
Yes.
So let's get started talking about some of the quality of life updates.
Yeah, let's do that. Now, I guess just maybe touching on, where we left off last time, talking about timing window improvements. I think there's definitely some room for optimization still. Some of the ones that come to mind, I'd say a noticeable one is Yisroel's transperisteel plating technology, right? Where you can't respond to action cards once you've passed. So
Yep.
maybe an optimization to see that, where you're not asking the table if Yisroel's the last one that hasn't passed for the round would be great. Other, of course, than anyone who has instinct training. Looking at you, Cha and Necro Cha.
Can't forget about Necro.
And yeah, I guess there's a couple other like pretty minor ones, like Nalu's Foresight, if they have no strategy tokens, could probably be passed, though that's probably pretty minor. One that I would like to see, actually, I think would be pretty impactful is they recently, if you remember, snuck it in. We didn't talk about it in the last episode, but what snuck in with the sabotage auto pass update is the optimization, where if all 4 sabotages are in discard, that window just won't open. And I think that's super cool, and I think that opens a possibility for more optimization with action card discard pile, because if you think about it, almost all, like, or not almost all, but a vast majority of action cards are unique, where there's only one of its kind. And so if it's in the discard, that's public information. And if it's something specific like emergency repairs, you don't need that window once it's gone.
Yep. Same goes for direct hits, actually.
Direct
That's the
hits.
more common one.
Yep. Things like morale boost. So I think seeing that they've done some optimization, I'd love to see a bit more. And obviously not super relevant early game because all the action cards are still out there, but you could start seeing some of that optimization kicking in the late game, which is usually the more painful part where things drag is in the late game.
Or, I mean, in general, just expand the auto pass and just auto pass if you don't have ability to play.
We talked about auto pass last time. So
I know, but just auto pass if you don't have an ability to play, just simplifies all that.
Yeah,
or
for sure.
And if you have an ability to play, it would be nice to have a deck or something you can click where you see all the abilities that he could play just in one spot.
So let's talk UI now. Hippos, if you have a game ready, maybe we can take a look.
Sure do, Half-Heard. Why don't we do the
Oof.
one that you and I are both in?
Oof. That hurts.
Tight one.
All right.
So, yeah, I mean, where do we want to start?
You guys tell me. I am your instrument.
I have lots of suggestions, but Kaz, I'll let you take the first one if you want.
Yeah, I mean, one thing that would be super nice if you, for instance, go to the action cards. No, we can't because then you would reveal everything. What do you have in hand? Let's go to the planet deck, for instance. Zoom out. I mean, you obviously have more than 5 planets. It would be really nice to, for instance, have like a little symbol here that shows you that you have more than one instance or something. Nice. Or maybe, I don't know, 1 out of 2.
Yeah. Or maybe like a plus sign here or an arrow here.
Yeah, exactly. Right? Something along those lines.
Something visually nice to let you know that this isn't the be all end all.
Yes, because that's something that comes up with players that start off in TI Wars, that they just didn't realize that they have more stuff that they have. Or sometimes you just miss your action card because it's in the second batch of cards. So yeah.
Yeah. I would like to see like things like the action cards where you have a max of 7. See all 7 here.
Yeah.
Because there is room.
There is room, yeah, that's true.
Yeah, I think
that would actually work, yeah.
Not a bad idea.
Yeah.
Poor Yisaril.
Yeah, but maybe that's it, right? Maybe it's just updating the max from 5 to 7. Just makes that little bit of difference, right? And that's even like permissory notes, you can go above 7, but I'd say most of the times, you're probably not. So, it could help, from whatever it is now, where most of the time you're scrolling through to like bumping it up to 70-80% of the time you get it all in the one shot.
Absolutely, yeah.
So the next quality of life update, we could probably go to the info tab.
Yeah, I mean, again, I love the info tab. It's got a lot of great information, but there's a couple of things I would like to see. One of the ones specifically is here in the planets. I would love to see the 3 planet types.
Oh, how many are
of each? Cultural,
industrial, and hazardous.
That's right. So maybe each symbol with the number beside it or in it, whatever looks best, right over there. And yeah, that would, that's super helpful just from there's tons of objectives where that's important, right? And also I guess for things like the tech skips as well. Maybe you don't have to show each type, though. If there's enough space, maybe you have the 4 tech skips with a number beside each, showing how much of those you have. Right, and I mean primarily I would say for just ease of objective. Now, Hippos, I see, or that's you, Kaza. I see you've added now. You're saying you want to see even the resource and influence in brackets next to each.
Resource influence, and then you could also add the tech skip to it as well.
That's one of the areas where I'll probably put in my own 2 cents. There's a little subject about user interfaces offering too much information at one given point in time. I like the fact that we can highlight and actually see the planet, and then you get what's there. We also, I mean, the update of having light blue for what's available and gray for what's not. So adding in the 1-2 for lore or 2-1 for Arnor on top of what's here, I think would make the user interface too busy.
And I would side with you on that one. I think you get everything you need from a big picture point of view, just looking at the, the full value of resource versus influence here. Oh, you moved the screen on me.
Sorry. There we go. Yeah, go for it.
From here, right?
Yeah, and if you put
I
the
think that tells you everything
here,
you
you're
know.
good too. That's true.
Right. And yeah, I mean, the reason why I was talking about the planet types is because that's just super helpful from an objective point of view, which I think is just something that is very important.
Yeah, like in this game, we needed to have 6 of the same type.
Yeah.
As a second level objective, so it would have been
And rather added non-home system planets would be nice as well.
Yeah.
Just because that's something that comes up with objectives all the time.
Yeah.
But I mean, that's super luxury.
What else with this interface? I mean, I think
one thing that always bugs me a bit is that I have to scroll down to myself.
Yeah. Some way
I can't custom order it, because if I could order it in a way that's like, okay, I want it ordered by initiative this time. I want it ordered by table position, or I want myself up top all the time because my info is the only thing that's important to me.
I like those options. I like that. One thing I was going to say is definitely one thing that's missing is some way to see turn orders, whether initiative order or speaker order. And maybe that's the way to do it, is by having a sort option. Maybe somewhere, if you go to the top of this hippos, maybe there's a sort button up here or something that gives you those options. Either speaker order, initiative order, or I guess yourself always at the top.
Right? And what would also be nice, I mean, you have 2 strategy cards, you could just get the better initiative plopped in here, just to see what the initiative number is.
Kaz, it looks like you're kissing a box.
Oh, nice.
I know it's a 3 in a box.
Because it's politics.
So romantic. So yeah, I think those would be some nice updates.
Another one that would come to my mind, especially with deals and sometimes binding, non-binding things, if you go to the trade interface, it would be amazing to have a little text box.
Yeah.
To
either at the bottom or maybe wherever.
Or you could put in 2 text boxes, for instance, to describe the terms of the deal, because it is super annoying if you offer something. It happens a lot in the agenda phase. You offer something, somebody takes the offer and doesn't do what you talked about. And in this case, you would just, when you do the deal, it would be in the logs. Everybody would see it, what the terms of the deal were. And it's clear. I mean, if it's a binding deal, the terms of a binding deal must be public anyway, because it should happen immediately. So how should it not be public?
So that actually brings up a question. It's like, yes, things that are immediate are supposed to be things that are binding, but what constitutes potentially immediate, right? For example, there's times where I've worried that if I'm negotiating with someone during an agenda phase and I vote first and then they vote, but I want to make sure that my vote aligns with what they're about to do, I'll want to trade and say, hey, let's trade something, a trade good, a commodity, a promissory note that says you will vote, in this direction, either for or for X votes. but I'm voting and then they'll immediately vote next, but it's not necessarily immediate, even though you're adding in a PN trade or a trade good trade to try to make it more binding. So this interface doesn't allow for that.
No,
but I don't know if it
I
is
don't
accurately and immediate.
I don't think in an async setting like this that you'll ever be able to hard code binding deals of that type. Maybe there's a way, but I can't really think of how you would do it.
No,
I mean,
that
in
sounds
a
super
real
hard.
life setting, the way it works is it's binding if, exactly like you say, they're about to vote and you give them something in exchange for them acting in a certain way. That is a binding deal, right? And the agenda phase is a pretty classic one, right? You say, I want you to vote 5 votes in this manner, and I will give you a trade good to do that, right? And so you give the trade good and they technically are casting the votes simultaneously.
Yeah.
That's a binding deal. Now, there's no way right now for the app to enforce that. So even though it's binding by rules, you technically could, quotes, mess it up. Be like, oh no, I messed it up and we can't undo, right? So in which case I would say the proper thing to do is to just trade back whatever the tangible part of the trade was at the next available opportunity. But I mean, I like this idea that Kaza's presented, right? I think having the text as part of, you can't enforce it through automation, but you at least have it visible in the trade window, right? So when you open up your trade window, you'll see your pending trade requests. You'll see the typical stuff that this faction is offering you this in exchange for that. And they'll also have the text that goes along with it to say, I want you to do this. And so you see it, right? And it just makes it that much, I guess, more likely that they'll follow through instead of maybe forgetting that maybe you had a chat about it in your chat window, earlier in the round, but then never touched base and when you accept the trade, you forget about that part of it. Yep. So yeah, I like that. Terms.
Cool.
End user license agreement.
Nobody reads those.
No.
Cool.
Yeah, then I mean something that's I think very minor, especially at the game beginning, is the placing of starting units and discarding of secret objectives. There's no reason that this has to happen in order. So it could be done simultaneously queued, kind of.
Sorry, since we were talking about agendas, actually, can I hijack the conversation for a second? Can you click the little eye symbol on the agenda? Actually, no, you'd have to do it in the active. You might not be able to see it here if we're not in an agenda. But you know how typically when you click the active comes up, and then there's another button you can click that brings up the ballot summary.
Yeah, I think I have a game that's
you might have
phase right
agenda?
now. It's my turn.
Come on, agenda phase. Yes. Perfect. You're my hero.
Classified document leaks. A leftist scored secret objectives will push the info tab that he wants.
Voting power and ballot summary. I love this overview, but I almost never use it because it's so many clicks away.
This exists.
But it's amazing. It gives you all the votes that people have. It tells you their status, if they haven't voted, if they played a rioter, if they can't vote for some other reason because they're necro or they got assassinated, which apparently that's the same thing. So and you have the agenda, right? How many votes, right? Once you get into the voting, it'll tell you who's voted for which outcome. It's a beautiful interface that I feel is so underutilized. So one thing I'd like to see is actually, instead of the voting interface being done on the main board, that say when it's your turn to vote, that say it's the check mark or whatever it is, just brings you to this summary. And then you do all your voting through this interface.
That's interesting, yeah.
right?
Yep.
And
Because
so
then you can
maybe
keep track of the numbers of influence that you have here instead of exhausting planets.
Mhm.
yeah, exhausting planets. And yeah, so maybe it's like, maybe you have plus and minus buttons, right? When it's your turn to
Mhm.
cast the vote, right? And then like this can take, like everything would update, right? Your votes here would update, your votes here would update as you increment or decrement, right? And then you have a confirm or something. Or maybe the
Mhm.
confirm is up here so that you're not accidentally hitting it.
Yeah, that makes sense.
I love this interface, and yeah, I think maybe this type of change would really take kind of agenda to that next level of just user experience being a lot more seamless. Now,
Cool.
obviously, there's a bit of just thought that needs to go into that, because you can't just split. Like if all you have is Mechatol, then your only choices are 6 or 6 or nothing. So
Yeah.
but maybe that
That's
could be
part of
automated,
that.
right? Maybe there's a simple algorithm to know if you have if your influence numbers are 1, 1, 2, 3, 5, and 6, that there's an easy way to just determine, well, that means you can do 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 or whatever, and it skips the numbers you can't, so that maybe when you increment and decrement, it just skips the ones that are not possible. I don't know. Is there? I mean, I guess the other consideration
that's
is: does it
amazing.
matter in the first agenda in the first agenda which planets you're
It doesn't
actually
matter which
exhausting?
planets. No, it does not.
The only
No.
one I can think of is if it's like terraforming initiative or something like that, that actually
Fair
increases the
enough.
value of the planet for the subsequent agenda.
And later on, Minister of Industry plus Construction
Yeah.
Writer is the other one where it matters.
Yeah.
So, maybe in that case, you just like maybe there's a simple way to optimize that you exhaust the planets in those instances that you're not voting on, as
Yeah.
opposed to the one that you are, or something like that. I don't know.
Yeah, and I mean the other thing is you could add more information to this interface, like how much would be gained by swords to plowshares or compensated
Yes.
disarmament.
Yeah.
What are the legal targets? Yeah.
Yeah. Specifically, I think for those two agendas, I would love to see, like, maybe in that interface, there's like you click when you click the actual agenda, maybe it does give you a summary, right? For those two specifically, because yeah, those I can tell you from experience are a huge pain to go through
Yep.
and count every infantry on every planet.
Yep. Yes.
Yeah, summaries of those would be just amazing.
Cool.
Yep. Yeah, and then one thing I was thinking of, if you go to the log for me, please. I mean, since we're skipping so much now, it would be really nice to have, for instance, a marker or like a highlight of what happened since you last did something in a game.
Mhm.
Since
Yeah.
you last responded, just so you can go through, okay, this is new, this is new, this is new, this is new. All right, we're good. And the other one, I was thinking, if we have, wait, what's the color here? Is orange, just as a little thing, for instance, add color to those symbols.
Yeah, to match
To see which player that was, to
color
match the
over
player
here.
color.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, aesthetically,
It's
nice
a
to
little
have.
thing, it's very minor, but
yeah. And
might
I know
help.
we've talked about it probably before, whether in the Discord, I don't know if we ever brought it up in any of our episodes, but filtering the log would be huge. Or being able to collapse, like if you scroll up in the log a bit, say go to like the action phase somewhere. Yeah, here, exactly. Right. Say this combat's happening, or leadership, right? So leadership happens, or they're, activating a system to be able to collapse, these to easily go through. Yeah. And that way you could skip the sub steps to easily go through and find, whatever you're looking for. But maybe a filter is good enough, right? So you can filter by, strategy cards being played, or you filter by action cards being played, right? And maybe that helps, or by stuff done by a player, right? A useful one for sure I could think of is by transaction, right? Maybe sometimes I just want to go back and see what are the transactions that happened.
Yeah, and talking color coding, if you could zoom into the map, please. Something that, especially with games where home systems get traded, I run into sometimes. It's sometimes confusing whose home system is whose. So it might be nice actually to have if you stay here, for instance, have the green home system, at least the option to have the home systems highlighted with the player color. Just to know, okay, this is the green home system, and even though there's like a lot of purple stuff in there and it's on the purple, it's still green's home system.
I see what you mean. Yeah, so when
Sometimes
you're
get super
reviewing public
confused
games, it's
if you
difficult to,
Yeah. And same goes for the tokens, I guess. I mean, just having a green thing around the token,
the borders,
to connect. I mean, in the end, they did a really good job connecting the three informations that are connected in the log with symbol, color, and
player name.
And here you only have the faction symbol, and adding the color to that would also help a lot to make things more visible, what belongs where, who owns what, might help to make the map even more useful on the first glance. Same goes for the tactics tokens, for instance.
I think a super important one we haven't really spoken about is the build interface.
Unfortunately, I cannot.
I don't have a game where we build at the moment. Yeah.
But that's okay. I mean, I think most people are familiar with that interface. You click the cards to the tech card equivalent to build your units. You exhaust your planets. You spend trade goods. I think it's not bad. I think what it could benefit from is just some more information in that interface. And I guess that would be specifically to talk about what are your limits on plastic, what is your total cost of the units that you've selected to build, and
what your current fleet is in that system.
Yeah, and
capacity,
fleet and capacity, limits. And relevant agendas and texts and stuff like that, regulated conscription, or if you have terraforming initiative that's increasing your, planet's resource value, and I guess what's your Sarween tools, war machine, right? And also like what's your build limit, right? So if it's like you have a space dock 1 on a 2 res planet, normally you can build 4 units, but maybe you've played War Machine and you forgot about it, and you could play 8. So having all that information on that screen, I think that's like the icing on the cake that's missing right now.
And one last one, available plastic.
Yeah, I guess to show like your reinforcements kind of next to.
Because there you have to go through like 17, it feels like 17 clicks, remember what ships you have, and then go back and hope that you don't mess it up again.
I guess that's the thing, is when you're in the build menu, a lot of times you have to go back to the main map to figure stuff out. So being able to take that away, whatever you need to go back to the main map to figure out, have it available in the build map, in the build window.
Yeah, exactly.
All right. I mean, I think we hit kind of all the main points. Maybe let's get a little silly on a couple nice to haves. I would love to see some AI, some bots.
Just play against bot.
That's basically the same thing, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Poor bot. Didn't we rag on him 2 episodes ago? Looking at his game.
Did we? I wasn't there.
You were there. We were looking
Oh.
at random public games. I think we commented
Oh,
on
the
them.
public games. Yeah, true.
We love you, BotBot.
True.
Big hearts, big hearts. I guess more on a serious note would be like either a tutorial or a sandbox mode. You know, I think that'd be huge for helping new players. But even for, you know, if we can't get the AI bots, well, maybe just sandbox to play around with things would be
Yeah.
pretty cool. Yeah, I mean, and I guess for me, I love stats. I'd love to see more stats in our profiles. You know, now that I've getting the game counts pretty high, completed games high. It's just good to know, like, have I played, you know, have I played Ghosts in a 4-player game on Loathe Thy Neighbor? You know, stuff like that. I think would be pretty cool. And just even to see for myself, you know, what are my win rates, personal win rates with each faction. Even if it's not public, but just to see it for myself, I think would be
Or
pretty
how
cool.
often you picked it. Yeah, there's a lot of
Yeah,
stuff
yeah.
you can glean from it. And it's kind of nice to see like what your preferences are, what your struggles are. I mean, the achievements kind of do that for you, but also not quite. They help a
Yeah.
bit. It's like I haven't won a game with Winu, and I don't plan to play them ever again. So they're more stats are always appreciated. As well as always for me, game modes.
Yeah.
Like some
I think we
drafting
kind
for
of
positions.
we kind of touched on that previously, but yeah, I think that's a good one to bring up. Like something that could be a good competitive pick mode. I think would be pretty cool, where it's like it's a bit of an all pick, but like you're saying, maybe with drafting what position you are in speaker order, drafting where on the map you're sitting, you know, all of that in. Maybe there's a way to do that. Well, I think we've spent enough time stalling in this timing window, so let's hit that pass button and keep the game moving.